The Roman Labyrinth. Chapter 11. The Dreams of Rome. Between dawn and night lies universal history. From the depths of night I see at my feet the wandering of the Jew. Carthage annihilated, hell and the glory of heaven. Grant me, Lord, the happiness and courage to touch the summit of my day. Borges' poetic prayer dedicated to Joyce. 2005, September 8, Rome. I have designed a special program for you, Hadrian announced the next day as he greeted Anna at the little park close to the hotel. His eyes were full of life, and he was freshly shaved and immaculately dressed. I want you to have the sensation of traveling through several centuries of historic Rome, Hadrian continued. I hope you'll fall in love with this city the way I'm in love with it. They strolled along the street crowded by small hotels with tree-filled courtyards behind their glass and brass doors, paneled lobbies with tiny sitting rooms, green-shaded lamps, and comfortable leather chairs. It was pleasantly cool, but Anna knew it wasn't going to last long. In an hour the sun will slow down all motion, force people into the shade, but not too far from the delightful sight of the streaming rays of light. I'm already in love with Rome, Anna acknowledged. You probably are, he nodded. In my turn, I have a love-hate relationship with my city. And where does this hate element come from? She inquired. From the fact that it ruined my life, Hadrian attempted to smile. But let's go back to the architecture. The buildings are in fact monuments of some important ideas, beliefs, and historic events. The architecture is a history written in stone. Its dimensions, shapes, colors, lines, proportions, perspectives, scale, value, use of light, all these are meant to be read as signs by which human beings communicate. As we deal with the history and architecture, we unavoidably deal with semiotics, because people who built Rome, or any other city for that matter, used many images to signify their conscious or unconscious attitudes, inclinations, wishes, convictions, ideas, admirations. The professor spoke with the enthusiasm and seemed younger this morning. His long-detained passion for teaching was coming back, and this girl was the one responsible for breathing new life into Hadrian the teacher. The architecture, as any other art, has a language of its own, Professor Farah continued as they joined a river of people in banks of massive buildings. This language did not originate with blocks of apartments, nor with the pragmatics of shopping centers. Its language originated with the early forms of worshipping, because the first buildings, introducing the meaning and the art into architecture, were the cultic edifices. The Roman architectural tradition is based on ancient symbolism. The symbols used in the architecture, especially in ecclesiastical buildings, can provide valuable insights into many ideas and events. So as you'll be designing your dream house, you'll probably want it to have something to say, right? Anna nodded, and the professor asserted, To read this language is easier than most people would think. In fact, this language is so explicit that efforts were made to disguise it. Architecture, it's a dream of Rome, a memory of the past. It sounds fantastic, Professor, Anna said admiringly. We'll start with the origin of Roman architecture, and then we'll trace its evolution in history. We'll select sites which embodied their era's spirit. I trust you entirely with my education, Anna smiled. Do whatever you think is right, Professor. There is one thing that should be corrected right away, he said, looking into Anna's green eyes. You must stop calling me Professor and start calling me Hadrian. That is, he added hastily, perhaps a bit apologetically, if you wish. Anna found herself, for some reason, quite touched. Okay, Hadrian, I would be only pleased to call such a distinguished man and a scholar as yourself by your first name. Scholar? Hadrian laughed. I'm a madman. Regardless, let's talk about the architecture. We'll begin with the Pantheon. That's where we are going now. It's the best preserved building of its age in the world, and it is the oldest standing dome structure in Rome. Pantheon. What does it mean? All the gods? Better to say, the temple of all the gods. It was erected in the aftermath of the Battle of Actium in 31 BC by Agrippa, who dedicated the original Pantheon during his third consulship. His building, however, was destroyed along with other buildings in a huge fire in 80 AD. The current building dates from about 125 AD, the time of the Emperor Hadrian. And why would he build it? Anna inquired. He was a cosmopolitan emperor who traveled widely in the East and was a great admirer of Greek culture and religion. He might have intended the Pantheon to be an ecumenical or syncretistic gesture toward the subjects of the Roman Empire who did not worship the old gods of Rome, or who, as was increasingly the case, worshipped them under other names. Yet it was also a trap for all the gods, their surrender to the god of the sun whom the very shape of this temple represented. The shape? The roundness. It provides a single, unencumbered interior space of overwhelming scale, and it all radiates from one central point, and it's the point of the foremost attraction where the sun enters the volume of the building, and they filled the building with the statues of different gods. They were passing a little piazza with the side-by-side building bearing the obvious marks of originating at the different epochs. You probably already noticed, Hadrian said, that one can hardly find a single building in Rome that is purely Gothic or Romanesque. Everything in Rome is synergetic. If you want to find unadulterated Gothic architecture, you'd have to travel to Paris, France. French Gothic implies great spaces for stained glass windows, while Italian Gothic needs large expanses of wall to fit the mural painting. There is no clear-cut line between the different styles in Rome. Everything is in dynamics, in transition. It's always changing and never really gets changed. In the same manner, the Roman religion takes all the known gods and puts them under a Roman banner. Since the 7th century, Pantheon has become a Christian temple, and it didn't take too much of an adjustment. Hadrian paused for a second. Are you a Christian? He looked at Anna attentively. The reason I'm asking, he explained as he met her inquiring look, is that I don't want to and I don't mean to offend your religious sentiments. I don't think I have too many of those, Anna recognized. You see, Professor, forgive me, Hadrian, she smiled faintly. I believed in God when I was a little girl, though in my own particular way, maybe in an uncanny way. Was it a faith? I don't know. I also believed the fairy tales, those by Hans Christian Andersen. But one can't believe fairy tales the entire life. She didn't sound too certain, though. Sometimes I think it must be good to believe in some fairy tales. Hadrian nodded. But who in the world can afford faith nowadays? We know too much. However, we have nearly arrived. It's time to go ahead with our field work.